Deafrowe with Deafrowe TV, and I'm back again with another review. But before I get started, please remember to hit that like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to see more of my stuff that comes out. And this is one of those things that you're going to want to see more of. And this review, today's review, is going to be of the mini series The Day of the Triffids. And I know, I'm not talking about the movie from 1963, and I'm not talking about the other miniseries from 2009. I'm talking about the 1981 BBC The Day of the Triffids 6-part miniseries. And today I'm just going to be talking about part one of The Day of the Triffids 1981. Let's get started, shall we? And in this first episode, you will see very little of other characters. This more or less centers around uh, actor John Duteen's character, Bill Mason. And you see here, he wakes up in the hospital. He has his bandages around his eyes, and he goes through the routine of waking up like it's a normal day for him in the hospital. Except this morning, he wakes up and there's no sounds, there's no traffic, and he thinks it's like 4 o'clock in the morning when it really isn't, because he can't really see the time. He just knows this is the morning he's supposed to get his bandages off at 7 o'clock. You'll see if his eyes are working properly again after being blinded by a sting from the plant that is called the Triffid, or Triffids, whatever you want to call them in this. They kind of go into it a little bit on both of them. Uh, and as he wakes up, he realizes he's hungry, like it's breakfast time, hungry, and he just shrugs it off, thinks well, maybe I just woke up early. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't tell, I can't see anything. I don't even know if I'm in the same room that I was before. So, but he does. He brings up a little tape recorder and he starts, you know, just rattling off thoughts about the Triffids and stuff like that, the stuff he knows, because the person he worked with, Walter, was thinking about writing a book about Triffids, and Walter gifted him the tape recorder as he was recovering from the head wound from the stinger of a Triffid, as a way just to pass time. And he tells the tape recorder he's at St. Mary's Hospital. It's Wednesday, May the 12th, or May 13th. He doesn't know. He thinks it's somewhere in between. Could be that morning. And he goes on to talk about how he first came across the Triffids and stuff like that, and what he heard was the origination of the Triffids was basically this mysterious man called Mister Palanquez was going around selling the seeds to these plants because of the oil they produced that could give it could be an additive to the fuel source that we of today, and give the fuel source 30% more efficiency. So it made the oil from these plants very, very, you know, sought after because of the profit potential, and so he's going on about that, and as you can see here, he's trying to act cool about everything. He knows something's up because it's too damn quiet, and that's why he thinks it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. But at the same time, he's like, it just doesn't feel right to him. Yeah, talking to the tape recorder, Walter asked him at one time, "Were you ever worried about the Triffids?" And he's like, "No, I've always been scared stiff of them." Anyway, here's Mister Palinquest talking to a oil producer, CEO, company man, or whatever about the oil that these plants produce, how much they could get ahead of the competition with the efficiency that the additive would add to their own oil. And he's like, "Do you want to be left behind?" And he's like, and all this other stuff, like basically. And then he asked him like, "Well, how much are these seeds going to cost us?" And it's like £10 million. And so they proceed to pay him half, £5 million, and wait for the seeds. And the thing is, the seeds came, but Mr. Palanquez never came back and got the other half of the £10 million and only took the $5 million. So what happened to him? Lord only knows. Some people say he was been shot down in the plane while he was flying the seeds overseas, and that's kind of how things come around to uh, and how they get scattered throughout the country. Let's see. And so, yeah, the company you see here, the company couldn't pay the rest of the £10 million because they never could contact Mr. Palanquez after this meeting. So, yeah, there's kind of crazy stuff going on, conspiracies and that kind of thing. And of course, they're talking about are you shipping these across the Iron Curtain and all this other stuff, meaning like the Russian side of Germany, I guess. You know. Anyway, it was 1981. What do you expect? Anyway, as he's talking into the recorder, he hears glass smashing outside, and he stops the recorder, rewinds it back, replays it, and he can hear it again. And he's like, "Well, maybe something weird's going on." He said, "I expect to hear the police sirens anytime soon," but he never does. And so it goes on to talking to the recorder about his experience with the Triffids and when he first saw them as a kid, and it was one. And that's why the theory that Mr. Palanquez's plane was shot down in the middle of the ocean is because the seeds floated out everywhere from there, and they started popping up in different areas of the country, especially like in England here. As you can see here, they have one in their backyard, and this is his first experience with the Triffids. One had grown up in his backyard. Let's see if I get a good shot of it here. Yeah, there you go. And him and his dad are just kind of looking at it like, what the hell is this thing? But they do know that it is like a carnivore of sorts because it is eating the bugs and everything like a Venus flytrap would. All kinds of bugs and even animal material. And he's talking about the little nubs at the bottom of this plant that make this weird noise, this clacking noise. He's asking his dad, like, "Oh, what that is." Let's see if I can get a good shot. There you go. So yeah, various bugs and different things that it's killing and eating, and its carcasses and all that kind of stuff. And you see that this little thing in the center is like the little stinger, but they don't know it has a stinger at this point. This is the first time they ever seen one in their backyard or anywhere. And come to find out, they've been popping up everywhere in this area. And then this weird, you know, film reel that he sees when he's seeing a movie. And like it's one of those propaganda reels that they show you right before the movie starts, and it's look what's happening in Ecuador. We have all these weird plants that are walking around on their own and all this stuff. And when he sees it, he's like realizes that hey, that's the plant in my backyard. If they can move around, I wonder if I dig mine up, it can move around or whatever. So that's what he does. So so this is his first sting from the plant itself. As he's running away after trying to dig it up and let it walk, the stinger comes out and slaps him right on the face. But it was such a young plant, it doesn't kill him. It knocks him out, and Bill Mason ends up being the first person ever stung by one of these plants. And from then on, people knew for a fact that these things were no good, and they would have to be taken out. And so then it begins the extermination part of it. Of course, his dad's taking an axe to it after what it did to his kid. And of course, throughout the nation and throughout the world, they start burning them and chopping them down to make sure they don't. Because what they come to find out that not only did it eat bugs and such, it also eats animals. It can also possibly eat humans as they get big enough, and yeah. So basically, it could kill a human with a sting, and then just wait around for the human to decompose, and then basically to a mush, and it eats the mush, the raw, decaying flesh. That is the Triffids. But at this point, they almost wipe him out until they realize this is the plant that the oil companies were going to use to get the oil from. This special oil to give them 30% more efficiency as an additive. And so the oil companies step in and gather them all up and wrangle them into a little farm so they can extract the oil. So yeah, so that's what Bill is telling the recorder for Walter right here is like this. This is the plant from Russia that produced the wonderful oil that they were talking about, and so yeah, the oil companies went around snatching them up from different areas. Then fast forward, he's talking and tells him he's giving you the run up to present right here. And basically, years later, Bill Mason is working at one of these Triffid farms with his friend Walter here. And they're talking about how these Triffids, Walter thinks they're communicating using those little nubs at the bottom. They're communicating with each other. And one of the things that Walter says is, they have some type of intelligence, and Bill goes on to say, like, well, it wouldn't be, they couldn't have too much intelligence. You don't think they're equal to us? So they wouldn't have to be equal to us. Look at the way they kill. Look at the way they eat. The way we kill and eat things and the way we grow things is more complicated for us than it is for them. All they have to do is sting something, let it die, and then eat the decaying flesh. It's that simple. But for us, we have to grow things, kill things, prepare it, and everything else. So their intelligence wouldn't have to equal ours. They would only have to get the upper hand at some point. And that point's coming up. And then, so yeah, they're talking about the sounds that they're making and everything. And Bill just writes it off as, it's just some type of mating call. But do they really mate? I mean, so that's reason Walter thinks they're actually communicating with each other using that sound. And that leads us back to the hospital where he finally tells you like what happened to him, and basically he stops the recorder because he realizes it's the clock on the outside, the big big clock that chimes on the outside of the building is chiming, and it's saying it's 8 o'clock in the morning. So the whole time he thought it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning before everybody else had gotten up. He realizes, wait a minute, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. This is hour past due when they told me they were going to come in here and take these bandages off. And I don't even hear the morning traffic as well. I don't hear the morning ruckus that I would normally hear outside of the window. So now he's starting to get a little bit worried. So he hears a noise outside his door. So he goes outside his door and yells for somebody. And then there's total silence. And it creeps him out so much that when he closes the door behind him, he barricades it with a chair to make sure nobody coming in behind him either. So it's getting kind of creepy now because he's starting to realize something's not quite right. He's 8 o'clock in the morning and he doesn't hear a dang sound except every now and again from a crash or a moan or something like that. So he's getting freaked out. Yeah, and he's basically right here saying, "I think I'm going mad." You see from the subtitles there. And then he recalls the night before. He's trying to understand what could have happened the night before that could cause what's happening now in the present. And he's talking about the night before when everybody was basically wanting to get done with their duties. Even the nurse was having a hard time trying to feed them because she was so sidetracked by wanting to go outside and watch the meteor shower or comet debris, whatever you wanted, that was falling through. And so it was kind of a spectacle to see. So obviously he couldn't see it because he just had surgery on his eyes, and at this point, he tells you exactly what happened to him, why he's in there, had to have the surgery on his eyes, and he's explained to the doctor exactly what happened. And this is Dr. Soma. Anyway, he tells the doctor here that he's like, look, I worked at a Triffid farm, and one of them got the upper hand on me, and with a 10-foot tentacle with a stinger on it, slapped me on the side of the head. If it wasn't for Walter dragging me back to the office and giving me the antidote, I probably would have been dead. On top of that, I was stung as a kid, so I built up maybe a small immunity to it as well. And the doctor goes on to tell him, like, well, you're one lucky man. I don't know if you want to keep messing around with these suckers. Like, not really. And so I thought these things were docked. So apparently, in this movie, or in this short TV series, in this version of it, they can be docked, so they don't have the stinger on the end. But what the farms have figured out is, especially for harvesting the oil for they need it for the 30% efficiency, if you leave the stingers in, you get more oil and more potent oil. So they leave the stingers in for these farms instead of docking them. So then that's what he was saying, is like this was a very mature Triffid with a 10-foot stinger that went around the corner and came at my face and got me. And it hadn't been for his partner at work, Walter, dragging him back to the office, he would have been dead without that antidote. And the fact that he was alive but just lost his sight for a little while is driving him insane. But now the surgery is supposed to give him his sight back, and that's why he's in the hospital with the bandages. And they're trying to give it time. He's like 10 days rest is what they told him to have with these bandages over his eyes. And then the next day at 7 o'clock, first thing in the morning, they're gonna take the bandages off, but with low light in the room so it doesn't mess up his eyes on accident, and kill 10 days of work and surgery over too much light in the room. So they tell Mr. Mason good night, and the doctor says, I'm going to go up on the roof with the rest of the gawkers and take a look at this, meteor shower or comet debris that's fallen down. Quite a spectacle. I mean, you can see it at one point in this video. He's looking out the window right here. Enjoy the free show, because the nurse is going to go see too. Yeah, as you can see here, there's a little spectacle going on outside, and as you see the doctor, he goes over there and he kind of, when he turns away, he kind of rubs his eyes a little bit, kind of giving you an idea of like what could be happening here. See right here, yeah. So he's kind of rubbing his eyes a little bit, kind of giving you an idea like, oh crap, something's not right. And the doctor's making a joke like, it must be boring for you. You're sitting here just kind of having to hear everybody else what they're looking at. And he does have like the radio on at the moment, and the radio host is describing everything to him. You know. So then we come back to the present, where he's the next morning, and he's scanning through the radio, and he realizes he's not getting the radio signal whatsoever on the radio like he was last night. So then he's like, well, shit, I got to do something. I can't just, you know. So last night, like I said, right here, you can see he's remembering that the radio was live, really live last night. Talking about this is the greatest spectacle the world has ever seen, and it hasn't been seen in known history or whatever. And so he decides, hey, I gotta take these bandages off. I know it's past 7 o'clock. The time they told me they were gonna take it off. The radio's not working. I'm not getting any signal. I'm hearing glass crashing. I'm hearing people moaning and all that kind of stuff. So finally, he's like, "Screw it, I gotta take it off." And he makes his way over to. See if I can get over there. Yeah, he makes his way over to the mirror, so he's facing away from the window at least, and don't just direct sunlight on his face. And that's when he decides, okay, I got to do this. I got to open my eyes. And he finally does it. And he can see. He can see perfectly. It's like his immune system actually worked for him this time. Like he said, he'd been stung when he was a kid, and he'd been stung the second time by a very mature one. But at the same time, his friend was able to get the antidote into his system fast enough to save him. So his eyes were able to regenerate to a better degree than what most people probably would have been able to do if they had been stung by the same Triffid. Most of them would have died. So he knows he's able to see now, and that's kind of he's like, oh God, thank you. But now he's wandering the halls like, where is everybody? He can see now. He's going around trying to figure out where everybody is, and his floor there's nobody. He finally hears somebody in the stairwell and realizes it's the doctor from the night before. He notices his voice. He didn't realize it at first. Seeing him, he'd never seen him before. So, but as soon as he tells the doctor his name is Mason, Bill Mason, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's like, don't you, if you recognize my voice, I'm the doctor from the night before, Doctor Solms." You know, yeah, I'm coming up. He's kind of like coming up the stairs, and and Bill's kind of confused, like, "What's going on here? Why is he walking like this up the stairs and yelling?" I mean, he's like talking loud, really, but and Bill's trying to get out of him, like, "What's the matter?" or whatever. He's like, "Can you take me to the office? I got to make a phone call or whatever." And Bill's like, "Yeah, I guess I could, but what's going on?" He's like, "Can't you see, man? I'm blind. I'm blind," or whatever. And yeah, the doctor's trying to tell him, I can't see anything. The tables have turned pretty much. Bill Mason can see perfectly fine after his, procedure and being stung by the Triffid. He's pretty much fully recovered, whereas the doctor now is completely and utterly blind. And then we cut over to the Triffid farm and realizing what's going on, they kind of give you a hint of what's going to happen in part two, because this is just part one. Each episode is just called part one, part two, part three, part four, part five, part six. There's 6 episodes. So this is part one of the day of the Triffids. And at the very end of this, they cut to the Triffid farm where Walter, his friend, works, and you can tell the fences. There's nothing behind the fences anymore. You saw in the earlier scene, you could see that all the Triffids were lined up behind the fence as they farmed them, and now the Triffids are missing because there's nobody to look after them anymore because they can't see them. And then you find Walter has been stung and killed inside the main office, and the Triffids are loose on a population that cannot see, as you can see here. One of those Doctor Who effects, if you get my drift. The Triffids remind me of something from they look like something out of a Doctor Who episode from that era, from the early '80s, and that's a cool factor for me. That's one of the things I love about this show. So, without further ado, that's part one of the day of the Triffids, and I'll bring it up part two coming up soon. But as of right now, that's my part one review, and that is me, Deafrowe, out.